At the outset, I want to thank Speaker Mike O'Neill for granting me the honor to speak with you in this spectacular chamber. Thank you, Mike. I had the opportunity to serve in this House almost 20 years ago with some of you that are still in this room. And to be back in this magnificent setting is invigorating. I also want to acknowledge the other dignitaries that are with us today. I want to start out by acknowledging our legislative leaders, Speaker O'Neill, President Morris, Leader Hensley, and Leader Davis. Thank you for being here, as well as all the other members of your leadership team. I see that we've got members of the cabinet here and all sorts of dignitaries. And I'm going to leave some folks out because you have to understand, I've spent the last 2.5 years as Lieutenant Governor, and you're not used to these sorts of people showing up. So if I leave some of you out, let me just say I appreciate all of you being here, all 165 members of the legislature, our state officials, our Supreme Court members, everybody that's here. And I especially want to thank some folks that can't be here today. Something that we must never forget every single day are our brave troops, men and women, fighting in 2 wars, including our own, Representative Melanie Meyer. And our own state employees, the men and women of our public health and emergency management teams who are out working on the flood issue and the flu issue right now. They are protecting communities across the state, and I ask you to join me in thanking them for their help, even though they can't be here today. Last but not least, I'd like to thank my wife, Stacy, for being here. We've been best friends, confidants, and husband and wife for the last 26 years, and Stacy, you mean everything to me. In this era of political division, we harbor many differences. We will not see eye to eye on every issue. We will not always agree. We will not. But we will always share one thing. We share, all of us here, every person in this room, a love for the state of Kansas. And today I've come to tell you that this common bond will always be stronger than any of our differences. I have lived here for all of my 51 years, and I love our state. I love our heritage, what we stand for, what we are, and what we will become. I love our origin. I'm so proud that our state could have chosen to be a free state or a slave state, and we chose to be a free state. I'm so proud of our ancestors, folks from the East Coast that migrated to Kansas not to seek fame or fortune, but to fight for freedom and protect us from the onslaught of slavery. I'm so happy that I grew up in Wichita, and all of you that are from Wichita know what I'm talking about. As a small child, the 2 blocks around our house seemed like the entire world. We explored them, we felt loved, we felt safe, and we felt secure, and I had a tremendous childhood there. Later, I would grow to appreciate the public school education that I received at Heights High and ultimately at Wichita State. I love the time that I spent as a child in Scott City. And for those of you that don't know Scott City, that's way out west. That's Representative Gary Hazlett country, wherever Gary is today. And although I realize that the economic engines exist all over this state, the heart and soul of the state are in the West. And that is a part of the state I truly love. As I grew older, I explored every nook and cranny of this state. I've been everywhere, and I've learned to love every part of Kansas. I've learned about the rich history of Southeast Kansas, and I've learned to love the Northeast as well, where Stacy and I currently live, a place of incredible entrepreneurs and great opportunity. And I love the fact that we have had so many great Kansans that have preceded us. I think about John Brown, the freedom fighter from Osawatomie. I think about William Allen White, the poet and journalist from Emporia. And I think about Berger Sanzane, the greatest artist of the 20th century. I'm also proud of our political giants, Alf Landon, President Eisenhower, and Bob Docking, for that matter, the entire Docking family. But most of all, I love our state motto, ad astra per aspera. That message that our founders sent us almost 150 years ago has never been more relevant than it is today. Though our path may be rife with difficulty, we will reach the stars. That is why I'm honored and humbled to serve at a time when Kansas is hurting. You all know the numbers. The state and the country are in the midst of the greatest recession since the 1930s. Tens of thousands of Kansans have lost their jobs. Our revenues have declined. Folks with retirement accounts have seen them plummet, and fear is rampant. But my message today is one of optimism. Throughout our history, we have faced challenges that appeared to be insurmountable. The Great Depression, the Dust Bowls, the challenges of 2 world wars. And in each of these occasions, Kansans have not only survived, we have prospered. Make no mistake, we will face and defeat our current economic challenge in the same way that we have in the past, with a determined optimism rooted in the common spirit that pushes all Kansans to the stars no matter what the difficulties. And when we defeat it, we will come out stronger and better than ever before. Our message of our shared past is clear. Our belief is stronger than our doubts. Our determination is greater than any obstacle, and our passion is more furious than any storm. State government must play a central role in this economic turnaround. For us to succeed in defeating this challenge, we must do 3 things. Our immediate need is to balance our budget in a responsible way. This will require a post-partisan spirit of shared sacrifice. You all know that our current deficit is $328 million. Filling that deficit will not be easy. The number is simply too large to fill it solely with additional budget cuts. Those cuts, on top of the cuts that we have already imposed, would jeopardize critical state programs. Cutting these budgets $328 million would hurt education, but it is really much more than that. When we talk about across-the-board cuts, we talk about numbers and percentages, but behind each of those numbers are real Kansans. Drastic cuts would hurt education, but it would also hurt public safety, it would hurt corrections, and it would hurt those that are disabled. And for those that believe that business would somehow be benefited by a strategy that balanced this budget solely through cuts, I would tell you that additional drastic cuts to the Department of Commerce would diminish our economic development efforts and our ability to retain and attract new companies. On the other hand, I recognize that $328 million is also too much to fill simply through revenue enhancements. It would be a mistake to raise taxes at this time. Fortunately, there is a middle ground. We need to share the sacrifice and address this deficit with both responsible budget cuts and revenue enhancements. Let me be specific. On the revenue side, there are about $250 million in enhancements that we can make that won't raise a single person's taxes. These include delaying tax cuts, decoupling, recognizing gaming revenue, and the recent idea of a tax amnesty. The good news is that these enhancements won't require us to raise taxes. I fully admit and acknowledge that some of them would cause tax cuts to be delayed, but no business or person would see their taxes increase. Shared sacrifice will also require us to make modest cuts in state government. Cuts that will be painful, but cuts that will not be crippling. Now, these votes will not be easy. I understand that. But they are necessary. And I am confident that you will rise to the occasion and have both the leadership and courage to balance this budget in a responsible way. This shared sacrifice is the Kansas way of life. Whenever we have a crisis in this state, all of us pull together in an attempt to assist in the recovery. But no group should be forced to bear the burden of this challenge by themselves. That's simply not the way that Kansas works. The second action that we need to take is to create and protect jobs. Our unemployment rate has increased from 4% to 6.5%, and just today, there have been announcements of additional layoffs. Kansans need to know that we are fighting every day as hard as we can to protect their jobs. There are several strategies that we will use to do this. First, we must promptly and efficiently put the Recovery Act funds in place. With the Recovery Act's investment in education, we are protecting jobs. With the investment in highway programs and energy efficiency, we are creating jobs. A key priority of this administration will be to continue to get the Recovery Fund money working in Kansas as quickly as possible. We will also protect and create jobs by holding on to our previous victories in NBAF and in the base realignment and closure process. Some of you may be aware that Texas is attempting to take away our NBAF victory by recently filing a lawsuit against us. And my message to Texas is simple. If you interfere with NBAF, not only will we mess with Texas, we will crush your frivolous attempts to take it away. We will also create jobs for the future. We'll continue to work closely with the Kansas Bioscience Authority as it solidifies our space in the animal health corridor. We'll also work closely with the University of Kansas to make sure that KU becomes a National Cancer Institute designated center. And we'll continue to work hard to attract renewable energy companies to this state. Kansas should be a hub both of wind farms, but also of factories that supply parts to those wind farms, and working together, we will make that happen. This hard work will bear fruit, and together we will protect the jobs of Kansans as we move through this recession. Finally, in order to turn this economy around, we need to unify this state. The time for typical party politics is over. The challenges are too daunting, and the stakes are too high. It's time for all of us, Republicans and Democrats, to forget about party politics. It's time for us to do what our ancestors have done when they faced great adversity. We will roll up our sleeves, work hard, make the tough decisions, and move forward, not as Republicans or Democrats, but as Kansans to solve the problems that we face. I am confident that with the legislative leaders that we have in place, we can get this done. And President Morris and Leader Hensley, Speaker O'Neill and Leader Davis, you have provided the state with outstanding Kansans who have placed the best interest of the state ahead of their own. I also acknowledge the great other members of their leadership teams and all 165 of you, because I believe that all of us together will make a great team as we move forward. Now, right now we are fixated on the year 2010, and rightly so. The pain and fear that people are experiencing is real, but there will be brighter days ahead. And I've learned from my experience in business that it makes sense to not just think about the year that we're in right now or the next year, but to think about 5 and 10 and 15 and 20 years down the road. So bear with me for a moment as I tell you a vision that I have for Kansas in the year 2030. a vision that is entirely possible if we make the right decisions this year, next year, and in the following years for this state. This vision of 2030 is a vision that I see as clearly as I see all of you sitting before me today. In the year 2030, Kansas agriculture and manufacturing will thrive. By the year 2030, there will be 600 million additional middle-income people in China and India and the emerging markets. And if we keep those markets open, they will be a steady source of sales for our agriculture and aircraft industry for years to come. In the year 2030, NBAF, if we protect it, will have long been built, and thousands of high-paying jobs will exist on the corridor between Columbia, Missouri, and Manhattan, Kansas. And Kansas will be known not just as the air capital of the world, but as the animal health corridor of the world. In the year 2030, we will have fully exploited our wind energy opportunity in western Kansas. We won't just have the impressive 1,000 megawatts of wind energy that we have right now. We'll have 10,000 or 20,000 megawatts of wind energy. And there will be companies dotted across the state that will supply those wind farms. I see a corridor developing between Wichita and Salina of factories to supply those wind farms with the parts that they need. In the year 2030, Kansas University will have long received National Cancer Institute designation, and all Kansans, regardless of status or income, will receive the highest quality of cancer care available in the world. In the year 2030, we will have a population increase, not a decline, as some are predicting. We will have a population increase made up primarily of Latino Americans and Asian Americans. And we will recognize that these new populations offer us a tremendous opportunity to fill our retiring, aging positions in various sectors of the economy, and that these new populations offer us an entirely new group of consumers. Unlike states that shun these populations, we will recognize them as a great opportunity. Thank you. In the year 2030, our kindergarten through 12th grade system will be using the latest in technology so that every student, regardless of where they are in the state, will have access to the same high quality of education as every other student in the state of Kansas. In the year 2030, if we make the right decisions, our regent system will excel. We'll spend our time not just talking about whether or not our basketball team or football teams are in the top 25. We'll spend our time talking about more important things, like whether our medical schools, our engineering schools, and our undergraduate schools are in the top 25. All of these things can happen. You, each of you, can make them happen. If we set aside the petty politics that permeates our country and instead pull together, the vision that I've laid in front of you isn't just the vision of an aging politician. The vision of prosperity that I've laid before you is our destiny. I close with a quote from Winston Churchill. During the worst times of World War II, when he was almost single-handedly protecting the West from the tyranny of Nazi Germany, he was asked if he worried about how history would treat him. He took no time to respond and quickly said, "History will be kind to me because I intend to write it." Churchill said, "History will be kind to me because I intend to write it." Tonight, we open the next great chapter in our state's history. Be certain of this. The title of that chapter, like so many great ones that have come before it, will be Ad Astra per Aspera. Decades from now, our children and grandchildren and their children will look back at how we responded to the greatest economic crisis in 70 years. Did we panic or did we lead? Did we retreat to partisan interest or did we embrace shared sacrifice? Did we bicker or did we set aside party politics to work together as Kansans? I already know the answers to those questions because I have confidence in each of you. I know that despite our differences, we share a love of this state. So, let's not just name this chapter with our great state motto. Let's get busy writing a history that future generations can truly be proud of. Thank you very much. God bless you, God bless this state, and God bless the United States of America.